today we're coming to you from inside Parliament. We'll be speaking to the minority leader, the Honorable Kazelato Forsen. We'll also speak to the majority leader for the first time on this show together to take us through the emergency sitting that was held on Friday, some key issues raised in relation to approval of ministers, the Gared project, and tax exemptions amounting to many millions of dollars. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we are here at the office of the Honorable Kazelato Forsen, is MP for Ejumaku Enyan Esiam, and he's also the minority leader. Good to have you.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Me. I'm very well.
It's a very tough job, I can imagine. It's been difficult just catching you.
Oh, we are used to it.
Wow.
We are used to it.
Amazing. We spoke on a few days ago about the economy and the CD's depreciation and all of those. We haven't even finished recovering from that. And then Friday's sitting also came. The first impression created was that the minority didn't really want to come to Parliament because it had to take 15% of MPs. I think they triggered Article 112 or something to get the House to come back. Was it that your side was not interested in coming back because you didn't want to approve the ministers? What was the real issue?
I think it's beyond the ministers. First of all, the very reasons why the majority had wanted to commission Parliament to sit on emergency, we felt there was nothing emergency in the reasons, because they had earlier on informed us that they want to recall Parliament for a number of reasons. One, to approve some tax waivers. Two, to get a loan approved, $150 million Gared IDA loan. Three, to approve a number of ministers, 24 of them, ministers and deputy ministers. And then finally to swear in their MP-elect. But all of this put together, we felt that there's nothing emergency for us to sit and to waste the taxpayers' money.
I don't want to go through all, but if you look at the approval, you know that included deputy ministers and substantive ministers.
Exactly.
So are you saying that because the size of government is large, ministers who had been upgraded from deputy to minister, who the committee had approved or recommended their approval, should also not be approved just because there will be other deputy ministers involved?
So let me give you an example. At the Ministry of Finance, we have a minister of Finance himself, then a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, and two deputy ministers. I mean, what's going on? You go to Ministry of Local Government, there is a minister responsible for local government, a Minister of State at the Local Government Ministry, and two deputy ministers. We felt it's unnecessary. One, the minister responsible for local government had been reshuffled out, and then you have promoted a deputy minister to be a Minister of State at the time that there's a Minister of State at the Ministry of Local Government, and you've appointed additional deputy minister. So a ministry like Ministry of Local Government should not have 4 ministers.
So why
during our time, we had 2.
So why did the committee say, okay, for finance, local government, we will not approve, but say, if you look at environment or information, the deputy had been elevated to minister. Environment, somebody who was not a minister was now made minister. You can say the same for some ministries. But to lump all together to say you're not going to approve, so that can also hold government business to ransom.
Our argument was simple. It is not for us to pick and choose for the minister, for the president. So we send a signal to His Excellency the President that it is now time for him to rationalize his size of government. To the extent that his own running mate, Vice President, has said that he's going to reduce the size to say 50. He should take it back, rationalize the numbers, bring it down, recognizing that the country is in a crisis mode, and then cut. When he cuts, and it's a sizable government, we'll all join hands and then approve them. Remember that those guys that the president have appointed, the majority of them are our colleagues and our friends. We do not oppose them because the president has nominated them, but we're opposing them in the interest of the nation, because we feel that where the country is heading to, at the time that our expenditure has become so huge that government has to resort in imposing taxes for us to be able to survive, the least you can do is to cut down the size of government, to signal to the investor community and to Ghanaians that are sacrificing that you care. But we don't see that. And that was the reason why we had to take that strong decision by saying that we don't want to be part of these approval processes.
So
we
does that mean
believe
that even in the committee as well, your side did not?
Yes, exactly.
So the committee members who were from your side did not approve?
We voted en bloc against it. And that is why the committee report had to be amended on the floor, because earlier on, impressions has been created that it was approved by consensus, but it wasn't consensus. So
it was a majority?
It was a majority decision. Then DC minority voted en bloc. I'm the ranking member of that committee. Wonderful. And we voted en bloc against the position of the ministerial nominees.
Let's talk about the Gared project. So one of the 4 things they wanted to do at least was the Gared, which we are told they wanted 150 IDA million. The impression is created that because the floods are coming, if the Gared project is not done, we could have a disaster on our hands. Because apparently the Gared project includes components, dredging of water, drains and all of those things, cleanup exercises and that type of thing. What was your problem with the Gared project?
Okay, so first of all, someone somewhere is trying to distort the fact. But there's the need for us to correct the records and let the people of Ghana be aware of what exactly the situation is and our problem was. Government of Ghana in 2018 approved an amount of $200 million, being a World Bank IDA loan, to deal with the floods. 2018. In 2019, some drawdowns were made. 2020, some drawdowns were made. So far, they had drawn down almost $180 million of the $200 million US dollar loan. Unfortunately, even though they had drawn down almost $180 million, the amount has been misappropriated or misapplied. For example, $65 million of the Gared loan that was supposed to be used for the purposes of killing the floods was misapplied for the purposes of COVID-19 expenditures. Yet, we do not have the breakdown of the COVID expenditures, $65 million. Then, we were told that unlike a typical World Bank facility, where a project implementation unit would have been established and then payment would have been made directly to the contractors. In this case, the amount was paid into the Ministry of Works and Housing's account. And the Ministry of Works and Housing has failed to account to the Parliament of Ghana how much money that they have spent from that account. I have with me some of the document that was submitted to us. Okay, so between on the 27th of March 2020, 65 million of that amount was withdrawn for COVID-19. It's here. Then on the 20th of March on the same day, and then 20th of March also the same day, approximately 1.8 million Ghana cedis, US dollars was also withdrawn. Aside that, 3rd of November to 30th of November 2023, an amount of approximately $60 million was also withdrawn from the account. But our responsibility was for us to track how this amount was used. Unfortunately, even though we were told that together with the $65 million that was used for the purposes of COVID-19, additional 62 million has been transferred to the Ministry of Works and Housing's account. But yet, only $33 million was the only amount that they could account for. That for us was concerning. And then another $43 million supposedly was used to dredge Odo River. Yet, when our guys went to the site, it was obvious that nothing of the sort has been done. And some of the contractors that our guys went to the site and spoke to were told that they were asked to be on the site just last week, even though they had paid more mobilization years ago. So we had serious concerns that until we get the ministry or the government to account for the money, what they have used for, the money for, there was no way we were going to approve the...
So let me just provide some information that came through this afternoon from the Ministry of Works and Housing. So they sent a statement trying to correct what they consider to be misrepresentation of the position of the Gared project. So, for example, they say as of March this year, it's 127.12 million that had been drawn down.
Yes,
not,
I have it here.
Not the...
I have it here. I just mentioned it.
No, you mentioned one...
Yes. 127.1.
Yeah, okay. But
made up of the breakdown I gave you.
I think you said 187
No, 180 something, including the 43 million that went to the Ministry of Sanitation for the dredging of the Odo River.
Fair enough. So they say 127 had been drawn down. Now, the 65 million director support COVID was under what they call the contingent emergency response component signed with the World Bank. And they say that the specific items that 65 million was used for, the Ministry of Health, after the approval, presented the list to Parliament.
No, it's
in
not
their
true.
statement.
That is not correct. And Bernard, obviously you follow the news and you have correspondence here. And I'm sure if they had accounted for COVID expenditure to Parliament, you may have heard it. You recall that this same Parliament, under Right Honourable Speaker Bagbin, was asked to investigate the COVID expenditure. To date, that has not been done. So nothing of the sort has been done.
Okay, fair enough. Let me read what exactly they said, so we don't represent them. They said, the Ministry of Health, responsible for implementing the CRC, submitted a detailed work plan and budget, which were approved by the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank. Subsequently, the Gared project transferred the amount to the Ministry of Health for implementation. The CRC implementation was completed in 2022 with a comprehensive report submitted to the World Bank. The Ghana Audit Service also audited the CRC activities and submitted their report to the World Bank. So no Parliament is mentioned there.
So our argument is simple. We approve the funds.
You are not aware of these?
And then we want to know how you use the funds.
Fair enough.
Before we can commit additional funds. $65 million is not chicken money. It's big money. And that is not the reason why we approved the Gared project. So if for some reason you had to divert some of the funds, come back to us, give us detailed expenditure returns, let us be convinced before we can commit additional funds. That was our position.
Fair enough. So Parliament is not aware of these?
We don't have it.
The other point around contractors paid for work not done. Indeed, the statement that came out said that with the exception of one contractor who was working on the Nima Paloma drain, who is yet to begin work, all other contractors are actively working at various project sites. Notable among them are work on the reconstruction of broken sections of the Odo River Channel at Achimota, Abofu, infrastructure upgrade at Alogboshi, Akweteman and Nima, and performance-based dredging of the Odo River in Kole Lagoon. So their point was that there was only one. In fact, they go on to elaborate that they claim that the project paid mobilization for contractors who had executed less or more than 18 to 20% of work amounts to mismanagement of project funds is unfortunate. Standard practice in contracts payments, paying contractors 10 to 25% of total contracts and amounts as mobilization ahead of the inception of work. So basically, they are saying that a standard procedure. So there was only one contractor who had not started work.
Again, we disagree with them. One, we sent our Works and Housing Committee to the site, and they visited all the sites. They came back informing us that they could only account for 4 contractors on site. And even the 4, they were sent to the site just about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Because they had the information that the NDC MPs are coming to the site. So they hurriedly went to the site to show presence, and nothing much has been done. So we felt that on the basis of all of what is happening, we cannot approve this. But let me say, yes, $127.1 million has been drawn down.
Yeah.
They are saying 65 million of that amount was committed to the COVID-19.
Yes.
The remaining $62 million, we needed to see who and who benefited from that. We did not have detailed expenditure returns. The only thing we had here, and as part of the document that they sent to us in Appendix 3, they could only account for approximately $34 million. What we asked them to provide to us had to do with the bank account, the statement, the bank statement, showing that this remaining amount is still in the government account or otherwise. To date, we don't have that evidence. So we couldn't.
So you're saying as a house, even if the Auditor General or the World Bank is aware of these breakdowns, to the extent that Parliament, which is approving the loan, does not know, you cannot go ahead and approve.
So World Bank is only a banker that is lending to you. It's not free money. It's the public that is going to pay. My work as an MP is oversight government's expenditure and how the money has been used. That money was not approved by the World Bank, it was approved by the Parliament of Ghana. They were asking us to approve another one for you. The least I can ask for is for them to provide us expenditure returns of what they've used the money for. And if they can't account for it, why should I? Why should I commit another $150 million to the same government that cannot account for $200 million? That, I believe, is not a proper way of accounting for public sector money. No, you don't do that.
Let's move to the tax waiver request. It is our understanding that this has been pending for 3 years.
Yes.
So the minority, do you have a position? Are you saying all the 42 requests should be thrown out? Are you asking for more, further and better particulars? Because the position on the Gared is clear. You're saying we're not going to approve. That's why there was a voice vote. You asked for a division. I think they went through the whole process. You still lost.
Yes.
Fair enough. So what's the position on
lost because they are more than us.
Yes, by one person.
Yeah.
So what's the position on the tax exemptions?
Okay. Let me say that we are not against tax exemptions in principle. But this particular tax exemptions for 1D, 1F project, we've had issues. Remember, I was a ranking member since 2017. We've seen the approval of some tax waivers for the government, 18, 19, 20. But from 2021, obviously at the same time I was the ranking member, we felt that there's the need for us to review that policy because we are seeing some abuses. Okay? And it is only right at a point in time for a government or for parliament to review its position on certain things if you get some additional information. So from 2021, we took a strong view against some of these taxes approved, tax waivers approved under 1D, 1F. And so we worked for Parliament to institute a guideline. And aside the guideline, we also worked for Parliament to approve the Tax Exemptions Act. Then since then, the government started submitting some tax exemptions to Parliament. And upon further scrutiny, we noticed that something fundamentally is wrong with it. For example, there was one asking for a tax waiver for a company that apparently had constructed an oil refinery. And the Ministry of Finance had done some assessment, and assessment has been sent to us to approve. At the time when they brought it was about $300-something million. So we have said that we want to see the assessment. So we looked at the assessment and we asked who did the assessment. They told us that is coming from the Ministry of Finance and Works and the GRA. Then my question is, the Ministry of Finance and the GRA cannot competently assess what goes into an oil refinery. They have to do that working with the National Petroleum Authority because they are clothed with the competence to be able to do that. And so they should go and work with the NPA before we can sit and consider it. To date, that has not been done. So until I get NPA to validate what the GRA has done, there's no way I can support that. Because, for example, we are hearing that the assessment was done assuming that the refinery is a new refinery. But then we have also heard that the refinery itself is not a new refinery, it's a second-hand refinery. So the cost of buying a brand new Mercedes is not the same as buying a 10-year-old Mercedes. So the tax you pay on a brand new Mercedes is not the same as the tax you pay on a, what do you call it, a 10-year-old Mercedes.
You felt that for that
so
refinery,
the assessment may have been
exemption
bloated.
Amount was too large.
Exactly. And upon further probe, since the time we stopped all of this, at the point, the value of those exemptions was $459 million. And that was when I issued a strong press release and all. They have subsequently gone back, reviewed some of these tax exemptions, and brought a revised amount worth $34 million. By that press statement alone.
So they reduced it. Well, what I have on the list here for the Central Refinery is $164.6
exactly.
million.
So you can see, based on our resistance alone, we have saved the nation almost $150 million.
But were there specific areas of tax that you, because they
mentioned
number of them: import duty, import NHL, import get fund levy, import VAT. And by the way, how are these things brought? Does it include the specific items, for example, that they bought that they require the tax exemption on? Is that attached to the memorandum?
Again, so if you bring the memorandum to Parliament, you have to accompany it with assessment, individual items.
For each company?
Each company.
Okay.
And so, obviously, because of my background, I pay attention to things like this.
You're a tax man?
Yeah, so I pay attention to I pay attention to things like this. And some of the items included in the assessment, we believe should not be. Some include even food that some of the workers are going to eat here. Some are saloon cars for the comfort of some people within the system. Some are things that are not related to the business. So it's our responsibility to understand it. And that is why you need a technical person in that sector. So anytime we are asked to approve a tax waiver for, say, a construction, we have to invite the committee responsible for roads and transport to sit with us. They have more expertise. Then they can show us that this is not for construction. I recall not long ago, this same government had come before us and has asked us to approve a tax exemption for some electrical equipment. Then within it was a quarry machine.
So if you don't,
I wasn't the one who identified that, because we invited other committee members, said this is for a quarry machine, and so we should take it off. And good sums of money would have been lost.
I'm told that there has been some meeting to try and resolve this, because as we speak, the figure is now $335 million.
Yes. There has been some improvement, I have to admit. It has moved from 459 million to 35 million. So you can see that at least we have saved the taxpayer some money.
So should I take it that after that meeting with the president, you are going to approve the 335?
Oh, I can't confirm that. I can't confirm that. What I can assure you is that we are going to do our work. We are going to evaluate each and every one of the 42 companies, and the ones that we are comfortable with, we will approve it gradually.
Finally,
the ones that we are against it,
yeah,
we will oppose it vehemently.
Listening to your opposite number, he was berating the committee for not coming up with a report and wanted to jettison the work of the committee so that the committee of the whole would deal with the tax exemptions. Is it something the minority would go with?
That was so bizarre. I mean, the committee of the whole is like a market. How can we do such a work at the committee of the whole?
But is it true that they've had 3 years to do this and they've failed? Because apparently these exemptions have taken 3 years to approve.
The 3 years we've saved the taxpayer so far, even before we sit and start considering, we've saved the taxpayer over $150 million. And that should tell you that if we had approved it 3 years ago, we would have lost $150 million. Ben, do you know what $150 million can do for the ordinary Ghanaian in times like this?
So if you will approve it, it must still go through the committee.
It has to.
It has to go
without a doubt. It has to go through the committee of finance without a doubt, and the committee must be given enough time to do the work that they have to do.
Last one before you go, I heard you talk about the vice president and the CD. How does the NDC intend to
fix it?
Yes,
okay.
I think that's what Ghanaians want to know.
Yes, I think we have a mixture of policies. Okay, first of all, we have short and medium-term policies, but let me start with the short-term policies. The problem we face in Ghana today has to do with confidence. Okay, we need to immediately restore the confidence and discourage people from engaging in currency substitution. Now, if an ordinary Ghanaian gets some cedis, the first thing they do is to convert it into dollars because they've lost hope in the system, the economy, and all. So you need to restore confidence, and people will stop the currency substitution. Number two, you need to cut government expenditure. Okay? Because today, government expenditure is large, and as a result of that, government has to borrow, and we are borrowing from T-bill market, and we are engaging in new consumption, and the consumption, largely majority of it is imported. So you are increasing the demand for currency, and government must lead the way. This two are the immediate step you need to take and send the signal to the markets that you are ready to start the reform process. In the medium term, you need to work on cocoa. Okay, when we were in office, the cocoa industry was worth about $2.5 billion. Today we are struggling with $500 million, $700 million. Look, at the time that the cocoa price at the world market price has hit record high, ever in the history of the cocoa industry. We have never seen cocoa selling at $12,000 per metric ton, now reducing to about $9,000. Has never been seen. At the time that the price has hit the roof, we are struggling with that much.
So you work on cocoa production?
So you need to work on cocoa production. Then you are looking at, I'm trying to show you some of the things we can do immediately to bring forex into the country. How many years now, since they took office, 2017 to date, this MPP government, for some strange reasons, have not added 1 barrel of oil, additional oil, for some interesting reason. And most of the oil majors are leaving the country. ENI has been chased out. Today they had to move to Ivory Coast, and as a result, they've invested over $9 billion in the Ivory Coast economy. And Bernard, as we speak, Ivory Coast had to hit huge sums of oil, and their production has come up. ExxonMobil left our country, and many others. Even 10 Talo, they could easily wrap up and increase the production. The oil production is going down. So the oil revenue coming in dollars is reducing at a very increasing rate.
So those are the things you deal with in the medium term?
Some of the medium-term issues.
I'm sure.
Engage in some of the substitutions that you need to, import substitutions that you can do.
We'll deal with.
So we can have an
bigger
overall position and discuss
Wonderful.
some of the measures we can put in place to restore the value of
Thank you for
our
talking
currency.
to us. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We've been talking to Kasalato Folsen, who is the minority leader on the emergency sitting in Parliament, discussing some theoretical issues. When we come back, we'll speak to the majority leader on the same issues. Stay with us. We are still here within the precincts of Parliament for a special edition of The Point of View. As we said, we've spoken to the minority leader from the East Wing. We've now come to the West Wing to speak to the majority leader, who is the Member of Parliament for the Efutu constituency, to walk us through some of the key issues around the emergency sitting of Parliament, which occurred on Friday, the 17th of May. Honorable Alexander Penyo-Marking, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening, and thanks for having me on this very prestigious platform.
Thank you, sir. I was discussing with the opposite number the emergency sitting. It's not very regular. Just some insight into, I think it was majority members who triggered Article 1123, the thinking behind asking Parliament to come, I think a week or two before they were due to come.
Well, we're all aware of what happened on the 20th of March, and soon thereafter, I embarked on this journey of engaging my colleagues, and we had these 3 serious government business that were advertised, and we're supposed to take them. And unfortunately, at the time, the blood was still hot, so we couldn't achieve any proper consensus. Soon thereafter, I wrote to the Speaker, and when I wrote to the Speaker, the indication was that we're not likely to get the participation of the minority. And you know what it was at the time. We didn't have our 138 because of the passing of our respected colleague, John Kuma. Should they even decide not to participate, we had what was required constitutionally to proceed with the business of the House. But that notwithstanding, I was still ready to engage them, and I think the outcome of it was the participation of us. And then we looked at the precedents. You know, there was a seeming lacuna in the last recall, which was triggered under Article 1123, where there was no such business committee meeting held. So, reading Right Honorable Ajawo's ruling, I had to call for a business committee meeting, so I agree on the issues, so that on the day there will be no surprises. Because if you recall, you know, in the Nitiwo case, where they had to now debate whether or not the issue was of urgent nature, and it called for a ruling. So that would lead to a technical knockout. But once there was a business committee, which business committee properly constituted had agreed on the business for the day, and you as leader of the house, you've read it and it's been carried, nobody can raise an issue of any other procedural irregularity, because at that point you as a leader of the house would not need a motion for Mr. Speaker's determination before you carry on. So we're able to cross that hurdle. There were a few surprises on the ministerial nominee. We had agreed at the committee level to proceed on consensus. In fact, the report had been laid, and last minute, our colleagues said, okay, they want it by majority decision. Very unusual. But again, because we had our numbers, we're not so worried that, okay, if you want it, would grant you that leave. So we didn't want to create unnecessary rancor, because a report has already been laid. It's too late in the day for you to come back and say that we should amend it to reflect majority decision. Especially so when we felt that they were proceeding on bad faith. All the nominees qualified under the Constitution. So what is your basis for refusal? But look, it was a political decision on their part, and we said, okay, you can let go with it. And when the time came, we're not surprised when they walked out. But we had our numbers. And they also tried a fast one on me when it came to the IDA.
Let's stay with the approval, because what your opposite number 247 said to us was that they had made it clear from the beginning that the size of the government was too large and the times we were in. So they were like, you knew that they were not going to. They said prior to even the emergency thing that they were not going to take part in approval.
What I'm saying is that to me was a belated political decision. At the time we laid it, as at 20th March, the report was to be taken by consensus. And when it's consensus, we use a voice vote. All right? So to merely say that the size of government and whatnot, a decision of a president to constitute his cabinet, his government, is his bona fide by the constitutional, mandate he has as president of the state. So you cannot come and say that you have to limit it to 10, 5, 6. He determines his government business. And he thinks that if I have these number of ministers in place, I will be able to function effectively. So the issue is not about number. When people talk about numbers, you are talking about individual ministers. But at the ministry, you have a whole bureaucratic system, a civil service machinery that enables the minister to function. So it's very trivial, to say the least, to argue on that tangent that, the size of government in what sense? In the sense of the individuals who represent the government machinery. Then we will say that, you should limit the recruitment we make to the police, the prisons, fire, at the judiciary. We should, limit those who man various units and all that. But it's a political decision. That's fine. Like I was saying earlier, they also played a fast one on the IDA, the Gared facility. When they lost the vote, then they came quickly under Article 181. And the argument fell flat. Because 1811 refers to situations where government is granting a loan. The source of that loan coming from the consolidated fund, or put it simply, public purse. But this had nothing to do with Article 181. And they tried to, they hit that card and tried to play a fast one on us. But I think Mr. Speaker was quick to throw them away, throw them out of. So
are you saying that the World Bank IDA loan was not covered by Article 181? Because when you read even your own preamble in the resolution, that's the first basis for even bringing the matter to the fore. So, for example, point 13, whereas by the provision of Article 181 of the Constitution and Section 55 emphasis of PFMA Act 921, the terms and conditions of all government borrowings should be laid before Parliament and shall not come into operation unless the items and conditions are approved by a resolution of Parliament in accordance with Article 181. Then they move on to now talk about pursuant to this, and then they state other laws. Then they mention.
So let's be specific. We are 181. We have 1811 up to 6.
Good.
All right. So the specific provision they refer to has to do with domestic loan, loan that is coming out of public fund, which now talks about all members of Parliament and that 50% plus. Right. So I'm saying that they got the law wrong by relying on 1811. Because when we took the head count, they had lost. We had 137, they had 132, 131, or 132. I don't remember, But they tried to play a fast one by saying that even with that 137, we still did not meet the constitutional threshold to pass it. And that is where I'm saying that they got the law wrong.
Okay.
Because that provision 1811 had to do with granting a loan out of public funds.
Okay.
So it's government granting a loan, not government procuring the loan from a third party.
Fair enough. They were also concerned about whether the people managing the project had accounted properly to Parliament. They said 127 million had been expended, of which 65 million had been spent on COVID, and that Parliament was not aware. So apparently there had been some audit done and the World Bank had been informed. But they felt that they, being the approving body, had not been given the breakdown of those expenditures, and therefore they didn't want to approve this.
Well, that was not correct. There's a way to do oversight. That is why in Parliament we have the government assurance, we have the public account, and the finance committee itself. You see, this was a report that the finance committee itself had no problem with.
Okay.
Rather, the Works and Housing Committee, through its leadership, appealed to Mr. Speaker to be given the opportunity to join in the deliberations. And they were the ones who were raising issues. The minister came to give assurance that, look, the issues that you are raising, give me time to respond. Now, these had nothing to do with this particular facility. You are talking about a previous facility. Now deal with that one. I mean, there are procedural issues here. If you give me 50 million to undertake a job, you hold my feet to fire on that one. If I come with another application for a different facility, unrelated to this, or even related to the first one, your job is to do your due diligence. Now, you don't rely on hearsay. They did not bring any report. They said, oh, they met a contractor and spoke to the contractor. Please. The contractor is not on record. It's not on record. So, but in Parliament, it's an election year. It's politics. They would want to say stuff to make government look bad. But my joy is that the minister on record assured the House that I will come and report. So let's give him that space.
But do you not think that based on good public finance management, you account well for the first tranche before you get more? Because
the
it's the same project
is not done.
But that's my point. So if you have been given 200 million...
Done. No, what I'm saying is that the one that they were complaining about is not done. It's not done.
But what has been given to them has not been accounted for before Parliament.
It's not been accounted for. It was not a subject matter of the referral.
But it's not the 150 related to the original 200.
I'm saying that it's not the subject matter. It was not a subject matter of the referral to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee did not have a problem. It was rather the Works and Housing Committee. That's why I'm saying that they, as Works and Housing Committee, has that mandate. That committee has that mandate.
But should the 150 not be with recourse to how the Works and Housing or whichever committee? Because by the end of the day, I'm just saying that at the end of the day, is it not the whole Parliament that approves?
No, but you see, if you generalize it, you confuse the public. The Works and Housing Committee has a mandate. Its mandate is to go and supervise, monitor what has been done, interrogate, call call those concerned, those involved, the stakeholders. You invite them to committee hearing, and you do your report. That's how Parliament operates. You don't pick a bus and go and stand somewhere and say, oh, you call somebody and the person told you that.
But I'm saying that's not the only thing they said.
No.
They also said that the 65 that had been used for COVID had not been accounted for before Parliament. Because there was 65 that had been moved into COVID in 2020.
If we want to advance our democracy, we should do the proper thing. Honorable the honorable ranking member for Works and Housing, who was arguing that way, ask him whether his committee has done any work. You just don't come and stand on the floor of the House to talk when you belong to a committee with jurisdiction on the particular matter. Proceed. That's the way you do it. Okay. You've seen committee going around the country, conducting hearing, public hearing, private hearing. Do that and bring your report. So for me, we can properly interrogate the issues. If they go to site, do a report and bring it.
Fair enough.
I mean, if you merely accuse somebody, make serious allegations and the work has not been done, now the contractor, you said, has been given mobilization. And when you called him, he says, he's not done the work, but they've given him mobilization. It's a serious matter. I don't know the question that he asked the contractor. But we have state institutions who have a mandate. Engage them, call them, let them say it on record. Then you report to Parliament. That would be the proper oversight.
Fair
so
enough.
For me, beyond the rhetorics, they should do the right thing. And then we would all be there. We
are still here in Parliament with the Majority Leader. We're trying to understand some of the details of what occurred on the 17th of May. Emergency sitting, key issues, approval of ministers done. The Gared project, 150 million IDA loan has been given. But the controversial matter of the $335 million tax exemptions has still not been cleared. We'll speak to Honorable Apenyomakin about that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are still here in Parliament, our special edition of The Point of View coming to you. Started from the East Wing, where the Minority Leader's offices at the extreme end. We are now at the West Wing, Majority Leader. Incidentally, both are Central Region MPs, and their constituencies are not too far from each other. So, Majority Leader's constituency is Efutu, capital being Winneba. And of course, Minority Leader is Ejumaku, Besiasi Esiam, Ejumaku being the main town there. So let's come back. So it seems to me as if there's a whole flow here. On the approval, they didn't take part. On the 120, they lost the vote. But on the tax exemption, we didn't even get to a decision because it appears the committee itself has not finished their work. What's going on there?
Well, for me, it's disappointing. We are talking about the unemployment situation. We are also concerned about our city. And we want foreign direct investment. There's a government that from day one promised the people that its focus would be to industrialize the country and create jobs. One way to do it is to give incentives to entrepreneurs and investors. Else people would invest in bonds and treasury bills. We have competitors in this global market. Other countries are offering incentives. So this government set out to offer incentives that would help businesses establish here, increase production, open the private sector space. Now, when they apply, and as an organ of state, we frustrate or delay them, it doesn't show seriousness on our part. For me, whatever the issue may be, I expect the Finance Committee to be up and doing to deliver on that mandate. There are individuals involved. Call them, interrogate them. But at least the joy is that of all that has happened, Speaker has given clear directives, and they have also shown commitment to work swiftly. Because you can't have tax exemptions waiting for 3 years. People have shipped their equipment in, they expect to have the waiver to be able to do their business, and things are getting stuck at the ports. How do they move?
Are you saying that this list of 42 companies have applied for this for the past 3 years?
Yes, what I'm saying, some
of them date back to 3 years.
2021, some came 2022, some came 2023.
Wow.
All right, so it's quite worrying. But at least Mr. Speaker has given some directives. We expect that within this short period, they would act so that by the time we resume, we would have the reports ready to be taken. And I would want to assure the investing community that we would do everything we would have to do to ensure that their investments
I understand
do not go waste.
We passed an Exemptions Act. Do you think that has fed into the
Now, the Exemptions Act was to provide a guide so that we do away with abuse. Okay, obviously.
So is the committee working? Is the committee working with the guide?
It's supposed to be.
So the guide came in probably after some of the exemptions were applied for. Because
Yes.
the application started in 2021. Exemptions,
Yes.
yeah. So my point is that maybe the guide was part of the delay. Because if the committee, if a guide is coming, you probably want to wait to be sure that you are going to present to Parliament something that fits the guidelines.
Let's leave it like that. It's fine. There's a new directive that they should work swiftly. So those that they have challenges on, they will have opportunity to call the stakeholders to, elucidate. Today, fortunately, Mr. President, for the first time, met the leadership of Parliament, and this was one of the issues that came up, and we all discussed it frankly, that it's worrying to have these 1D, 1F incentives still pending in Parliament. And we've had a very fruitful engagement on that. So I'm quite sure that Finance Committee will do what is required.
Because listening to you on Friday, you attempted to, or you suggested that you were going to let
I invoked the rule of necessity.
Of
course. Not committee of the whole. I invoked the rule of necessity, yes.
That they would forget about what the committee is doing and do it as a whole house.
Of course. I mean, if they are stampeding you, the Constitution does not necessarily say that without the committee, Parliament at plenary cannot function. We are only regulating our work through the sittings of committees. But when it is obvious that committee is unable to deliver on its mandate, that is why we have the rule of necessity and prudence.
Tuforson said to us that initially when the list came, it was about 450, but based on the work they've done, because he's also a member of the Finance Committee, it's now been beaten down to 325. So whilst you construe this as a delay, he believes that that type of scrutiny is what has reduced the volume of exemption from about 450 to 335.
No, but
325.
Scrutinizing should not lead to a zero-sum outcome. Scrutinize, but with speed. 3 years is too long a time. So I know about what he's talking about. And that's why we're saying that you don't have a complete basket of bad nuts. There may be some that you don't have a problem at all with them. Why don't you clear that one and take your time to deal with the difficult one?
So it's possible to do it on a case-by-case basis?
Of course. It's individual. If you look at the motion, it's motion, each item is taken. So you move one motion, it's approved. So you don't lump them together. No. So that's the problem I have.
When is Parliament reconvening?
Well, it's at the discretion of Mr. Speaker, but the indication is that within the first week of June.
So according to your opposite number, we could have waited for first week of June to do all this. That there was nothing urgent about all the things we've just discussed.
Well, to him, Mr. Speaker and I disagree with him. How can you say that a matter that had been listed to be taken, and for some frivolous reason, somebody files a court action misleads the chair that he has an injunction. We just decided to keep quiet on it. They misled Mr. Speaker that he had an injunction. The issue of 20th March, all right? The Fiamepo filed a writ at the time that Mr. Speaker was served with the process, that writ. No injunction application had been filed. And I'm saying this on record. But they somewhat managed to create an impression to the chair that they had an injunction application, which led to the pronouncement made by Mr. Speaker. But we all decided to let it slide, all right? And that delayed government business. We don't need ministers to superintend over those state agencies and departments. We don't need ministers. We don't need to deal with this Gared project. If you go to Okankwe North, they are benefiting from this project. And the MP voted against this, that you don't want the sanitation situation to improve in your constituency, or because of political...
no, they say it's for value for money.
Because of...
making sure the right thing is done.
Political convenience and all that. So, if these are not urgent, what other thing will be urgent for government to consider? You travel around. Look, recently people were criticizing Mr. Yofi Grant, GIPC. The man is always traveling, attending exhibitions, attending trade fairs, getting investors in. We bring them and we frustrate them. Are we making our country an attractive destination for investment?
Well, there are many views on that.
So
$332 million is very close to the chunk the World Bank is giving.
You are getting,
the IMF is giving us for our
Bernard,
next tranche. So I'm just pointing out to you that tax exemptions have been very controversial for a long time.
Bernard, don't fall for that argument. If you do, then you are suggesting that tax exemption is a freebie.
No, it must be rigorously employed.
That's the impression you try to create.
No, that's not.
Atuforsen simplifies it by saying that it's a freebie. It's free money.
No,
don't fall for that.
That's not what he said.
No, but are you creating the impression that...
I'm just saying that the amounts involved are large. So when Parliament is scrutinizing it, the public appreciates that.
Well, I am
that's
for
what
that.
We're saying.
There should be.
Yes.
But it must be seen to be a reasonable scrutiny.
Fair enough.
That's what the point.
Fair enough. We'll leave it here. Thank you. We've been talking to the MP for Efutu and also the majority leader and leader of government business.
Correct.
From his West Wing office after having spoken to the minority leader from the East Wing. Hope it's been useful. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.